Thanks for joining us for the weekend edition of National Focus. I'm Tasia Floissac. Coming up, Sandpiper Trust present life-saving equipment to fire and ambulance service. Efforts to enhance Dominica's investment climate supported by the International Finance Corporation and Domfesta activities continue to promote youth participation in culture. Stay tuned for these and other stories after this.
The black Sikatuka fungus can survive on banana and plantain leaves even after they have been cut from the tree. Farmers and hucksters are encouraged to use alternate cushioning material when moving produce from farm to the market. Do not use banana and plantain leaves as cushioning. It is against the law to move banana and plantain trash from the field. Obey the law and stop the spread of black Sikatuka today.
Thanks for staying with us. Considerable technical support by the International Finance Corporation (IFC) to Dominica is said to be complementing government's policy in creating the appropriate investment climate for economic growth and development. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Trade, Employment and Diaspora Affairs, Karin Prevot, made reference to recent interventions which has reaped successes for Dominica when she addressed the opening of an IFC trade logistics workshop at the Fortune Hotel on Thursday.
The ongoing simplification, automation and integration projects speak to government's effort and commitment in that regard. The integration between the compliance unit of the Bureau of Standards and the Customs Excise Assecutable system will realize significant benefits to our importers, brokers and border agencies. Some of these advantages include, of course, there will be faster processing time of customs declaration, reduction in time spent clearing consignments, and more efficient import monitoring and data collection. Of course, any movement in the time spent at the port or the time spent clearing goods at customs would be well appreciated by our private sector.
Ms. Prevot said Dominica has been leading the way in the OCS region in its customs reform efforts as it relates to simplifying and harmonizing trade procedures and documentation. She added that the integration process between the Dominica Bureau of Standards and the Customs and Excise Division have been used as a pilot in other OCS countries. She says notwithstanding this, however, Dominica will continue in its efforts at improving standards regulations and the formalization of an improved border management system. The 1.5-day IFC workshop on trade logistics, which commenced at the Fortune Hotel on Thursday, ended on Friday afternoon. The workshop, which was attended by local and regional participants, focused on how automation can be used to reduce the time and cost of clearing goods by automating the procedures in the technical control agencies and systems.
This system, we hope, will benefit not just the traders, but we hope that this system will benefit all our consumers as it will protect the local market from poor quality imports. And any effort or any program that is going to assist our consumers, to protect our consumers, we welcome these efforts.
At the end of the workshop, participants came closer to developing a regional plan for integrated border management, which will be used for the benefit of all OECS countries. As part of the reinvention of the city of Roseau, planners are proposing making the bayfront the focal point of the city. A multi-purpose cruise ship terminal is part of that new image to improve the aesthetics of the capital as well as to properly welcome cruise tourists to the island. Ian Fields of 3S Bridges NSD listed the details of the terminal building.
You would agree that it would be very, very helpful to have something. I think those that are operating in the tourism industry would want to have a meet and greet point whenever the visitors are going on organised tours, etc., bathroom facilities to ensure that visitors have all that accommodation, light dining, refreshments, and again, I think there's an opportunity for very well-defined vendor locations within the structure. So the next slide. This is really a reminder of what we're looking at right now. Most visitors, that's the first thing that they see when they come to Roseau. So I think that we want to introduce something which might be a little bit more appealing. This is our interpretation of what a building might end up looking like. Obviously, there's a long way to go before anything would be finalized, but we try to accommodate a building using essentially the same footprint, but a multi-purpose building.
Fields described in detail the suggested floor plan for both stories.
Ground floor, I realize that during tropical storms there's a good chance that you're going to get waves coming up over the seawall. Might be able to protect that a little bit more than that, but the ground floor is really hard surfacing, talking about tiled surface, so even if water was to be able to get in, we're not talking about losing much in the way of the structure of the building. Water would be able to flow through it without doing any damage. Meet and greet point, as I said, bathroom facilities, ramps, just for services going out and also for handicapped access. Second floor, we're showing internal dining, two areas of external dining. And there's a myriad of things and combinations that you could look at, but we just tried to think about a restaurant facility that might well be contracted. I mean, if you don't need to have all these tables available, you can sort of shut off one side of the restaurant and accommodate people on a reduced side.
A grand stage is also proposed for activities on the bayfront.
While we're staying on the theme of the seawall, trying again to develop that focal point of the city, trying to make the very best of Roseau and create facilities where people would be inclined to meet, have entertainment, etc. So I think most people recognize this planting area. I think it's at the bottom of the Cock Street, I'm not sure which one, but there's a planting here which was formerly a fountain.
The revamping of the capital city also includes a centralized drainage system and new roads, a new bridge to replace the West Bridge, and a bypass for the Botanic Gardens. See more on our website www.news.gov.dm. And in more news, $641,000 have been put to work in the Roseau South constituency for development projects. GIS's Jana Hector has more in this report. Of the widespread developments underway in Honorable Ambrose George's constituency, GIS News visited 3 totaling $641,000. While 2 of those projects target mainly youth, all 3 of them employ skilled, able-bodied young people. On Thursday, May 15th, Honorable Ambrose George took on the role of tour guide as he gave the nation a look at developments in Roseau South. Less than 3 weeks prior, Honorable Ambrose George handed over a $100,000 check to the Lubia Village Council to fund a much-needed upgrade to their playing field. Now, exactly 16 days since, a team of 15 is days away from the end of one phase of the project. The team is being led by contractor Kermit Robinson, who as a resident of that community also has a personal stake in the project.
The project is a 420 feet retaining wall to separate the playing field from the embankment. It employs 14 young Lubia fellas, Lubia workers, and it is at a cost of more than $240,000. The project in itself is a big step forward because that playing field hosts a lot of the young fellas playing football in the afternoon. If you take a look, you have more than 60 young boys playing football every afternoon. And I think it will be a very good project in enhancing taking out the young fellas on the roadside.
Honorable Ambrose George, parliamentary representative for Roseau South, sought to highlight the thinking behind the venture.
The work commenced just about 2 weeks ago, and the purpose of this project is to really improve the standard of the playing field. When I say improvement, that includes lighting of the playing field, the leveling of the playing field, the construction of a perimeter wall on the eastern and southern sides of the playing field, and the construction of a hard court to facilitate sports as far as basketball, netball is concerned. We believe that it is a very important project. It's not only for sports, but anytime there are other activities, especially activities of the village council. The Luce playing field plays a very integral part in that purpose, or for that purpose. And therefore, we are going to do as much as we can in terms of securing the playing field so that such activities can be held properly.
Another playing field job is ongoing with Youth in Mind in Kings Hill, a community well known for its sporting enthusiasm. At a cost of $250,000, Honorable George is seeking to meet the needs of his young constituents through sports.
They have been asking for the improvement of the playing field and, in addition, the lighting of the playing field. So we have come up with the funds for such improvement to include the leveling of the playing field, which we have already done with the machine. We did the excavation in terms of the construction of the perimeter walls, which is ongoing, and also we're going to construct the basketball court at the northern end of the playing field. In fact, that's been marked out already for a full court. We intend also, for the purposes of spectators as well as for community activities, to build a permanent stand, okay, using as much local material as possible. So that when, for example, who knows, we may have a rally here or a public meeting or something, we will have a ready-made stand where we can just utilize for such purposes. We intend to put a fence on the western side, again to facilitate containment of the balls during games on the playing field so that you don't have to go down the valley to pick up the balls.
After about 1 month of work, laborers are currently absorbed in phase 1 of the project, and the hope is that the transition between phases will be smooth and seamless. Honorable George is proud of the fact that each worker hails from the area.
We always insist that where a project has been undertaken, that the people must come from the area, the contractor must come from the area, so that the money can circulate within the community rather than bringing in persons from outside and so on. So this is one of the features of the community-based projects, and to have the people within the community undertake the project so they themselves can appreciate what they're doing and take control, not control, but take ownership. That's what I want to use. Take ownership of the project so that at the end of it all, having sweated and labored on the field, if somebody is doing anything to damage or cause any destruction, they can actually be the police for the playing field.
The dedication of the workers is such that they have agreed to 4 days a week of paid labor and 1 volunteer day. Honorable George spoke on behalf of his constituents. He is sure that the project is much appreciated and the minister looks forward to its completion to hand it over to the beneficiaries himself. In Fortney, it has been a month since 8 workers have completed a bridge for residents of this area. Up to 45 people daily, young and old, have had difficulty with this path, especially during bad weather.
I witnessed people having great difficulty accessing the area, and as I said earlier on, in particular the young children and the elderly. And for example, to undertake that project, which is the second phase, the men have to actually head the aggregates from the main road here to the area, because you can't drive there, you can't push a wheelbarrow there. So they have to be headed from the road to the area.
Now the $74,000 phase 2 lies ahead. Steps, a landing and a retaining wall to protect the investment from mudslides. It is expected to take up to 6 weeks to satisfactorily complete this task, but work is underway. Next on Honorable George's short-term agenda is a $34,000 storm drain for Fortney.
There used to be a box drain there, but with the redirection of the road, it was affected, and therefore we need to reconstruct that box drain to facilitate the movement of water, household water as well as, of course, storm water, and to prevent the stagnation of the water in that area. And we all know the situation with mosquitoes and so on. So we expect that to, again, when that project is completed, to improve on the general sanitation of the area for the residents in that area.
Those 3 ongoing projects in Honorable George's constituency of Roseau South total $641,000. But it's clear that that's not the end of development spending for that constituency. For GIS News, I'm Jana Hector.
Thank you, Jana, for that report. Also in today's news, sustainable agriculture is the subject of discussions at this time as a way forward for Dominica's economic development. On Wednesday, the Dominica China Modern Agriculture Center in Portsmouth was formally opened as part of the Agri-Forest Festival calendar. The ceremony was attended by agricultural officials and stakeholders, in addition to interested persons. Agriculture and Forestry Minister Honorable Matthew Walter was among the speakers advocating for farmers to put their all into the businesses. Honorable Walter, whose ministry conceptualized the festival, is one who is confident that agriculture is a major player in sustainable economic growth.
Agriculture has the potential to create limitless opportunities and wealth that can be shared, that can be sustainable, and that can allow the participants to function in a global economy. Its successful functions depend on a win-win and prosper thy neighbor relationship. To significantly increase GDP, this sector must be robust, smart, and resilient.
The Inter-American Institute for Cooperation in Agriculture, represented by Ken Copel, is satisfied that sustainable agriculture practices is the future of the industry.
The theme, Agriculture and Forestry, Our Sustainable Future, suggests that we have already embraced the task of repositioning agriculture to support our economic development thrust and to improve the livelihood of our rural territories. It is also evident from the Growth and Social Protection Strategy, the action proposed are in alignment towards a sustainable approach to agriculture to include issues of risk management, creating an enhanced, enabling environment for investment in agriculture, sustainable use of natural resources, proactively working to enhance agricultural production and productivity, especially for crop diversification, providing product development support, and facilitating trade and investment in agricultural sector to include issues of food safety. Over the last 4 years, GIS Dominica has been engaged in providing technical cooperation through a country strategy entitled Enhancement of the Competitiveness of Agribusiness through Improved Quality and Food Safety Systems.
Venezuelan ambassador to Dominica, His Excellency Hayden Pereira Sanchez, joined the Chinese ambassador in congratulating the two countries for the accomplishment of the Agriculture Center. Ambassador Sanchez stated that a country which is able to feed its people from its own basket is a blessed one.
When a country takes food from the same land, that country will have a long life. Country need care their land. It is necessary for the food security of the population. Food security must be above all, because it's the way of overcoming hunger of the village.
And in other news, the Cultural Division has been a key partner for youth empowerment for decades, and this year have seen the need to target increased youth participation during Africa Week celebrations. This according to President of the National Youth Council, Tasia Benoit, who considers the initiative a timely intervention.
The theme, I think, is very timely. The theme is once again youth embracing our African heritage. And I guess it's very fitting that the National Youth Council has been empowered at this point, because what we need to ensure is that the youth of Dominica develop not just an understanding of the culture, but an appreciation of it, that they actually get to experience that African heritage within their daily lives. And that will include developing better knowledge of African cuisine, knowledge of African languages, knowledge of African traditions, so that we can identify with our brothers and sisters across this distant sea. And fortunately for us, we are a generation with access to ICT, such that we can bridge the gap and learn more about Africa whilst we are here in the Commonwealth of Dominica.
Benoit says there is strong need to educate the youth to foster deeper appreciation of the African history.
The present generation is a generation that was not only born emancipated, but we were born truly into an independent nation. Many of our parents, our grandparents, they grew up in a time when our colonial masters still had, oversight over the Commonwealth of Dominica, and so we are not too familiar with the chains of Britain and our former colonial masters. So we have a greater sense of independence, I would say, and we don't understand truly the struggle of actually fighting for that right, because we have been born with it to a certain extent. So I think that it's important that our peers and our elders educate us on the struggles that they went through, so that we never forget it, because it is a sacrifice that should only have been made once. We don't want to see things like slavery and the scourge of racism resurge in our region. But
Cultural Officer Delmans Ramos Moses responded that it is necessary to bridge the gap between the youth and African ancestry, since Dominica's culture is rooted in African rituals.
We see a need to rejuvenate that level of consciousness and pride, because Marcus Garvey says, a nation that knows not its history is like a tree without its roots. And we say history and culture, and so we see the youth, if they get conscious at this point, it will be a rejuvenation of the African consciousness.
Meantime, Chief Education Officer Melina Fontaine is encouraged by efforts to keep the Creole language alive in Dominica. Fontaine made reference to successes at preserving the language when she addressed the opening ceremony of the Creole Spelling Bee competition on Wednesday.
It used to be that you would only hear Creole being spoken in the rural areas, or as we sometimes say, in the country. Today, because of all our efforts to keep the Creole language alive, we can hear the Creole language being spoken everywhere, including within the schools, particularly on Creole Day during the independence celebrations. Today, we can boast of much language diversity in Dominica. We have moved away from just the standard English being accepted and believing that Creole is substandard. Today, we have a better understanding of it as being part of our identity of who we are as a people. It is also one of the areas that we should not suppress and should be proud of it. It is a good thing to know several languages, and we have begun to accept that Creole is a language that should not only be spoken, but written.
The Chief Education Officer hails the production of a Creole dictionary as a success story in the preservation of the traditional Creole language.
We now have a Creole dictionary and other literature written in Creole. A special mention must be given to Felix Henderson, who really keeps it alive every day through DBS Experience Creole.
The 4th annual Creole Spelling Bee competition, organized by the Cultural Division, held on Wednesday at the Arawak House of Culture, saw the participation of 11 primary schools, 3 of which were strongly represented by male participants who demonstrated mastery in the spelling of the Creole language. KG George of the Paybush Primary captured the 3rd consecutive win for his school after competing against 10 other primary schools in 17 rounds, including a tiebreaker. In 2nd place was Luce Saint-Ville of the St. Luke's Primary School, while Kelson Mitchell of the Campbell Primary School was awarded 3rd position. Other participating primary schools were Salibel, Coliho, Grand Bay, Massac, Grand Fort, Thibault, Wesley, and Roseau Seventh-day Adventists. And finally, this news time, the Dominica Fire and Ambulance Service on Friday received 6 portable medical bags courtesy the Sandpiper Trust of Scotland. Each medical bag consists of essential life-saving equipment, including CPR face masks, multi-flow oxygen regulators, paramedic chairs, flexible catheter mounts, and stiff neck collars, among other items. These vital pieces of equipment will be used by the Fire and Ambulance Department in times of emergency and rescue. The Sandpiper bags were presented to Fire Chief Josiah Dupuy by Tina Alexander of Lifeline Ministries on behalf of the Scottish organization. Fire Chief Dupuy, in accepting the bags, expressed gratitude to Sandpiper Trust for coming to the assistance of Dominica. He said the equipment will enable the department to better respond to accidents or sudden illnesses. The department gave a commitment to putting the medical kits to good use.
It's a pleasure to stand here to say thanks to Miss Tina that the gifts we are getting, we make good use of them in one way or the other.
The Sandpiper Trust was founded in memory of a native of Scotland, Sandy Dixon, who tragically drowned at the age of 14. The trust aims to improve pre-hospital care in rural and remote areas in Scotland. The organization over the years has made similar donations to several countries around the world. And that's the news. We now join Tanya Green for a recap of the week's headline stories.
Thank you, Tasia. Time now for the major stories which made the news this week. Prime Minister Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit has announced plans for a new phase of the Housing Revolution program. He told the recent DLP rally in St. Joseph that the new phase will include the construction of 1,500 houses throughout the country. Over 40 million euros have been promised to Dominica for the 11th disbursement of the European Development Fund, the EDF. The revelation was made on Friday when EU countries observed Europe Day. Plans for transformation of the city of Roseville took a giant step forward this week when the concept design was presented to stakeholders via a town hall style presentation on Tuesday. The new concept, as presented by Ian Fields of Free S Bridges NSG, includes a bypass near the Botanic Gardens to reduce traffic through the park, an upgrade to the cruise ship terminal, replacing the West Bridge, and the complete overhaul of the major streets of Roseville. Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry hosted the first ever AgriFest Festival this week. The festival supports the agricultural component of the National Export Strategy by promoting agriculture commodities and export potential. And the Dominican economy continues to enjoy noticeable benefits from the growing cruise industry. The Ministry of Tourism reported this week that in 2013-2014, Dominica welcomed 195 cruise ship calls, an increase of 23.4% to the previous year. Dominica's ambassador to the United Nations, His Excellency Vince Henderson, has applauded Dominica's Prime Minister, Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, for what he describes as visionary leadership. The ambassador, the former parliamentary representative for the St. Joseph constituency, told DLP supporters last week that the Dominica leader should be commended for taking bold decisions in the interest of Dominicans. The development of a regional plan for integrated border management to be used by OECS was the focus of a trade logistics meeting which took place at the Fortune Hotel on Thursday. The meeting saw the participation of regional experts as well as officials from the Dominica Bureau of Standards and Customs and Excise Division. And a multi-million-dollar agriculture center was officially opened in Portsmouth this week. The multi-million-dollar Dominica China Modern Agricultural Center was constructed at 1 mile by the People's Republic of China. The facility will serve as a training ground for farmers, as a propagation area to propagate different types of plants, more so vegetable seedlings and other planting materials. It will also be used as a hardening facility, especially for tissue culture seedlings. And the Division of Culture, in collaboration with the House of Nyabingi and the National Youth Council, has formally announced Africa Week 2014 celebrations from May 19 to the 25. This year's Africa Week celebrations will be held under the theme Youth Embracing Our African Heritage. And a live jazz sunset cocktail at the Champ in Picard, Portsmouth on Sunday, 1st June will kick off fringe events leading up to this year's Jazz and Creole event, carded for June 8 at the Cabritz, Portsmouth. These were the major stories which made the headlines this week. It's now back to you, Tasia.
Thank you, Tanya. McPherson St. Luce brings us the Creole highlights next.
Hello tout le monde, bienvenue à cette nouvelle en créole. Non, moi, c'est McPherson St. Louis. Premièrement, Ministre Public Works, Honorable Ribbon Blackmore, bien plaisir pour le projet de développement ville Roseau. Honorable Blackmore fait parole ça là pendant le projet ça là, te présenté plus bonnet semaine ça là.
Nous en State House là, nous environnement qui belle, qui douce, Ou ça, il y a plus de monde qui ba nous mauvaise langue. Là nous avons bâti State House là. Mais pour ça, ça qu'a fait, monde bien confortable, monde bien joli en place là. C'est le gouvernement, le parti. Piqué mouli, nous avons tiré fort, nous avons avancé dans le et bien nous savons, là nous qui manger aux eaux, et puis qu'il y a plus place en Kaibla qui est belle comme aux eaux.
En autre nouvelle, le département pompier recevait cadeau 6 sacs médics hors d'une organisation Scotland Sandpipers Trust. On peut des cérémonies pour en place bon matin là, où l'officier Lifeline Ministries Tina Alexander présentait ces sacs là pour chef pompier Josiah Duping.
Yo ba non petit cadeau aujourd'hui, moi crois qu'il y a un petit cadeau, mais c'est un cadeau qui vraiment grand parce que ça qui touché autant mon à Dominique, mon qui nous ka ba traitement là nous répondre puis ambulance non. Comme ça aujourd'hui nous taper 6 sacs médics. Ça c'est ça qui ni bitin qui petit équipement qui ça aide nous les nous faire travail les nous répondre pour trafic accident les nous aller à kay moun qui ni distress comme ça moi voulais remercier madame Tina Alexander pour contribution ça là et nous a dit aussi que c'est ça 6 sacs qui nous tapent aujourd'hui, nous qui mettons ça en bon use et moins certain qui fait une différence quand il est touché, c'est les gens qui nous ont traitement.
En la nouvelle, le département environ santé ni bon avis pour le public là, qui concerne maladie chikungunya. M. Anthony Scotland, c'est chef département là.
Moun pour tech koyo, yoni pour servir bed nets. You need pour mettre screen à window, you need pour servir repellent, you need pour couvrir ces jumps là, wakay là, you need pour check septic tank you need to check roof, ça y est qui est guttering, wakay yo. So two party où glue ça west, looking net, it is Egyptian mosquito. Oh my God, mais c'est pas ça. So no qualité avec McPherson. Nous avons fait des progrès.
Messieurs, mesdames, ça c'est tout pour nous nouvelles en créole pour présent. Non, moi c'est McPherson Luce. Et bon week-end. Au revoir.
Now for your tip of the day.
In-studio discussions, insight, Creole news, Road to the Throne, Calypso, Creole Festival, Carnival, and lots more local programming. See it all on the Government Information Service, your first for local news.
Eating an apple is a more reliable method of staying awake than consuming a single cup of coffee. Apples are a good source of many nutrients. For example, a typical small apple has 12% of your daily recommended intake of fiber, 10% of your daily recommended intake of vitamin C, and trace amounts of minerals such as calcium, potassium, and magnesium. However, apples do not contain any caffeine. The nutrient that associates apples with energy is actually the sugar contained within. In fact, the natural sugar in the apple is more potent than caffeine in coffee. An apple will thus act as energy over a longer period of time than a regular caffeine supplement. And that's all for this edition of National Focus. We always welcome your suggestions and comments. Drop us an email at gis@dominica.gov.dm or visit our website news.gov.dm. Friend us on our Facebook page, facebook.com/GIS News Dominica. You can also catch up on past National Focus newscasts on our GIS Dominica YouTube channel. From all of us here at GIS, thanks for watching and join us again next time on National Focus. Have a wonderful weekend.